Geography of Natural Resources Development. This course aims at equipping the learners with an understanding of distribution pattern, natural resources, exploitation and management of these resources for sustainable development of economies. There are some things that we are going to look at as we handle this course. And one of the things that we are going to look at is natural resources. We are going to look at the definition of natural resources, category of natural resources. In topic 2, we are going to look at spatial distribution of natural resources. That includes forests, forestry resources, wildlife resources, water resources, fisheries and marine resources, energy resources, and mineral resources. In topic 3, we are going to look at the role of natural resource in national development. Topic 4 will focus on exploitation and conservation of respective natural resources. Topic 5, we are going to look at natural resources and conflicts. And finally, in topic 6, we are going to look at environmental management. So what is a resource? A resource is a source of supply or support that is used to satisfy human wants. Something becomes a resource only when there is importance attached to it. This implies that resources are man-made. For instance, you may have a broken seat lying outside the university corridors. That seat is not a resource. But if someone uses that seat probably to support a tree that is falling, now that seed becomes a resource. And that simply tells us that resources are man-made. For example, while Prosopis duriflora Madenge shrub is viewed as an environmental hazard in Kenya, in China it's a useful plant, hence it's a resource. The concept of a resource, therefore, varies in space and time, as technology advances and human wants increases. Some things that used to be a resource, with time they cease to be resources, whereas some things that never used to be useful to man, they tend to become useful as technology advances and also as time goes by. So in some areas, some things are not useful, they are not resources, but in other areas, the same thing or the same substance become useful. So resources vary from one place to the other and from time to time as depending on the human needs, and as they increase, the more things become resources. Natural resources can be defined as materials or substance provided by the earth that man can use for social, cultural, and economic gains. What is a natural resource then? A natural resource can be defined as materials or substances provided by the earth that man can use for cultural, social-cultural, and economic gains. If the material provided by the earth is not made into use, the aspect of it, say, to the said material to be a resource is lost. Eric Zimmerman, 1951, sums up this explanation by asserting that resources are not, they become. In other words, you have to make something a resource to be a resource. But if it's not utilized, if no importance is to attach to it, it ceases to be a resource. Resources can be classified into depending on three factors: their abundance and availability, their chemical nature, and their distribution. If we look at classification of natural resources according to abundance and availability, natural resources can be categorized as renewable natural resources and unrenewable natural resources. Renewable natural resources have the ability to replenish after use by generating into useful conditions within a time span, thus renewable. When overexploited beyond certain critical points, their ability to regenerate may be compromised, thereby becoming non-renewable. For instance, if you have an area covered with trees, You cut those trees, they can regenerate. Their seeds can regenerate to a level that they can be useful again, and that resource is renewed. However, if there is overexploitation, these trees are cut as they germinate, as they go, they are overexploited, they are destroyed, the forest may disappear completely, and therefore that forest resource may cease to be and therefore becomes non-renewable. Examples of renewable resources include both living or the so-called abiotic, that is plants, fishes, wildlife, among others, and non-living or abiotic, which includes soil and air, etc. We also have continuous natural resources. These are resources that cannot be degraded under whichever circumstance, even with gross mismanagement. Something like solar energy, we have air. They cannot be depleted under whatever, they cannot be degraded under whatever circumstances. They include geothermal. Continuous natural resources include geothermal energy, wind, and gravity. Characteristics of renewable resources. One, they have the ability to regenerate. They self-regenerate, making them inexhaustible. They have a naturally determined growth rate. Their rate of regeneration is determined by ecological processes on a time scale. That means there's a minimum waiting period for regeneration. For instance, if you have a forest resource and the trees are harvested, they are cut down, you have to wait for a specific duration of time for these trees to generate and grow to maturity level for them to be harvested again. And therefore, the time that these trees take to mature cannot be changed. And that's why we say that they have naturally determined growth rate. Another characteristic is that they have potential for becoming non-renewable. As mentioned earlier, if the rate of exploitation is greater than the rate of replenishment, renewable resources may be depleted completely and unable to regenerate. These resources are available for use at any given time because they are available, because they regenerate. They regenerate and they are renewed every other time, so they are available for use. They also characterized by the fact that the multiplicity of species interaction and abundance. There is multiplicity of species interaction and abundance. The diversity and complexity of species make their management difficulties due to interaction in the quality and uses of different species. For instance, in a forest ecosystem, we have trees which are tall, but also we have climbers underneath. So if you cut trees, if you want to manage the climbers, you have to manage the trees also. But if you cut the trees, you also destroy the climbers that are found beneath. And therefore, there's that multiplicity of species interaction and dependence. What are non-renewable resources? Non-renewable resources are resources that are not capable of regeneration except for some which may regenerate after long geological periods. Mineral resources such as gold, tin, petroleum are largely non-renewable, while minerals such as oil and coal may replenish at very slow rate, making them non-renewable on human timescale. When we say that some of these non-renewable resources can be regenerated after a long geological period, it means that they'll take millions of years for them to regenerate, and within the human timescale, human being may not may not come to realize their regeneration, and that's why we say that they are non-renewable, because they don't happen within human time scale. What are the characteristics of non-renewable resources? They are available in finite or fixed quantities, hence they are referred as stock resources. They are not easily regenerated, and in most cases these resources are not replenished when used. Their used substance remain as waste. Let us classify resources according to chemical nature. Based on this classification on chemical properties, natural resources can be grouped as inorganic resources, organic resources, and mixed resources. Under inorganic resources, these are natural resources that originate from non-living things. This includes air, sun, wind, water, metallic minerals, among others. When we talk of organic resources, they originate from living things, and this may example include plants, animals, microorganisms, and also oils, coal, and among others. For mixed resources, these are resources that originate from living and non-living things. For example, we have the soils. We can also classify natural resources according to their distribution. And based on this, we have three categories based on distribution. One, we have natural resources, national resources. These are national resources. These resources are confined to national boundaries. They may include minerals, land, soil, among others. But we also have multinational resources. These are resources that are shared by more than one nation. This may include rivers, lakes, and migratory routes for animals and also animals themselves. And also we have international resources. These are resources that are shared by all nations, e.g. air and water.